I'm going to now show you a different way to graph these direct and partial variation questions that are not word problems. And this is going to be using the slope y-intercept method. So what you need to remember in this method is when your equation is in the form y equals mx plus b, m is the slope, which is the coefficient of x, and b is the y-intercept, which is the constant term, and that's the point where the graph crosses the y-axis, what you used to know as the initial value. So the slope is also the rate of change, and the y-intercept is also the initial value. And it is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is to plot the y-intercept. That is your first point. So in this here, this is the coefficient of x, so this is the slope. So the slope is -2/3, and the constant term with the sign is the y-intercept, so that is at 0,6. So as I said, your first step is to plot that point at 0,6. Now what you do is you take your slope, which is rise over run. If your slope is an integer, you make it a fraction with the denominator of 1. So if the slope was 3, you would make it 3/1. So the y-intercept is your first point. You're going to plot the second point by making what is called the right triangle. And to make the right triangle, what you do is you take the numerator of the slope, and if it's positive, your right triangle will go up, and if it's negative, the right triangle will go down. So let's look over here. The numerator of the slope, that's the rise, and it is negative, so we're going to go down 2. So from your y-intercept, you're going to go down 2 because that's your rise. So we're going to go down 2. And the denominator if the denominator is positive, you're going to go to the right. If it's negative, you're going to go to the left. So over here, our run is the denominator, and it is 3, which is positive, so it's going to go to the right, 3. One thing that you need to know is this negative is either in the numerator or the denominator, not both. So if it's in the numerator, your rise is negative and your run is positive. If you put the negative in the denominator, your rise is positive and your run is negative. So if the run is positive 3, that means we're now going to go 3 to the right. So at the end of the right triangle, you are now going to plot the second point. So that means your second point is right there, and you're going to join those 2 points together to make the line. Just like in the last lesson, make sure you join the points with a straight line using a ruler, and the points go from edge to edge on the grid. Now I know this page here only shows one example, but we're going to do another question. So you're going to have to label this y equals negative 2 over 3x plus 6. So the second graph we're going to make is y equals negative 4x minus 8. So once again, the first thing you have to do is to plot the y-intercept. So the y-intercept here is at negative 8. The y-intercept is at negative 8, so you plot that at 0, negative 8. And the slope is the number in front of the x, so that's negative 4. So the slope is at negative 4, and since it's an integer, you need to turn it into a fraction, so it needs to be negative 4 over 1. So what that means is that the rise is negative 4, which means you go down 4, and the run is positive 1, so you're going to go to the right one. Here's the problem. When you try to go down 4, you go off the grid and you don't have enough space. You cannot extend the grid. So what you can do is you can change your slope so that it is, instead of negative 4 over 1, it is 4 over negative 1. So that means now the rise is positive and you're going to go up 4, and your run is negative, so you're going to go left 1. So from that y-intercept, instead of going down 4, you're going to go up 4. And instead of going right 1, you're going to go left 1. And that's where your second point is going to be. And again, you're going to join the 2 points using a ruler, straight line, going from edge to edge. And we will have to put the equation on there. So in this question, your y-intercept is at negative 8. If you were to go down 4 and right 1, you can kind of see that it would still be on that graph, even though it goes off the grid. So down 4 and right 1 is the same as going up 4 and left 1. Now, there are other 2 special types of graphs that you will need to know, and one is a vertical line and one is a horizontal line. Let's start here with the second one. If you think about this equation, it's missing the x term. This could be written as y equals 0x plus 2. So what that means is that the slope is equal to 0. And what you should remember, hopefully, from the slope lesson is when a slope is 0, that means it's a horizontal line. Then what we have is the constant term, and that's the y-intercept. So your y-intercept is at 0, 2, which is here. And the slope is 0, which means the line is horizontal. So when you graph this line, it's just a horizontal line with a y-intercept of 2. So, and I appear to be missing a note, any line in the form y equals b, where b is a number, is a horizontal line with a y-intercept of b, which is at 0b. So if it looks like y equals a number, it's a horizontal line, and the y-intercept is at 0b. So if you look at your equation, if it's just y equals a number, then it is a horizontal line. So conversely to that is if you have just x equals a number. So in that case, you cannot put that into y equals mx plus b form because there is no y. So that is a vertical line. With an x-intercept of 0, -3. So you're going to plot your x-intercept at 0, -3 and draw a vertical line with the ruler edge to edge. And since we have more than one graph, you need to label them. So this is x equals -3, and this one is y equals 2. So if it just looks like x equals a number, it's a vertical line, and the x-intercept is a, which would be at a0. So we've gone over a lot here, so just to recap over here, if the equation just has an x and no y, and its x equals a number, then it's a vertical line with that number being the x-intercept. If the equation is just y equals a number, it is and there's no x, it is a horizontal line with the number being the y-intercept and a horizontal line. If you have an x and a y, the constant term is the y-intercept, and you plot that first. The coefficient of the x is the slope, and the slope is rise over run. If the rise is positive, your next point goes up 1. If it's negative, it goes down 1. And if the run is positive, it goes right, and if it's negative, it goes left.